On a hot spring afternoon in 1963, two men, sent by the American CIA, snuck into the cafeteria of the Havana Libre Hotel. Their directive was to retrieve a poison pill from the freezer and slip it into the chocolate milkshake of Fidel Castro, the Cuban leader who was known to devour up to 18 scoops of ice cream after lunch. While exact details of the story are contested, it's rumored that the pill, however, froze to the freezer coils and broke, foiling the CIA's plan and granting Castro many more days to satiate his sweet tooth. Ice cream has held a unique role in our world's history, culture, and cravings. But where did it come from? The first accounts of cold desserts and iced drinks date back as early as the 1st century. In civilizations including ancient Rome, Mughal India, and Tang Dynasty China, these icy treats were mainly enjoyed by the royal elites. And finding the means to freeze these delicacies wasn't always easy. Wealthy Mediterranean nobility sent laborers to trek up high mountains to harvest glacial ice and snow. Meanwhile, ancient Persians built shallow, insulated pools of water and utilized a technique known as sky cooling. At night, the shallow pools would naturally radiate heat into the dry desert skies, causing them to dip below the ambient temperature and freeze.
Yet the cream-based treat we know today made a much later debut. It was originally inspired by sherbet, or charbat in Arabic, an icy drink believed to have originated in Persia and subsequently gained popularity in the Middle Ages. European travelers brought sherbet recipes home and began creating their own chocolate, pine cone, and even eggplant-flavored takes on the refreshment. In 1692, Antonio Latini, a Neapolitan chef, recorded a recipe for a unique milk-based version, which some historians dubbed the first ice cream. In the 18th century, ice cream expanded its reach as these recipes set sail alongside European settlers to North America. Yet it was still mainly enjoyed by the upper classes, as the process to make it was quite laborious, and its main ingredients, sugar, salt, and cream, were expensive. George Washington is said to have spent the equivalent of $6,600 in today's dollars on ice cream in one summer alone. It was on American soil that the frozen dessert entered its golden age, as inventors and entrepreneurs began to engineer ways to bring it to the masses. In Philadelphia in 1843, Nancy Johnson patented a revolutionary ice cream making machine featuring a crank and beater, which made the process easier for any home cook. And storing ice cream was no longer an obstacle, as by the mid-1830s, New England businessman Ice King Frederick Tudor had greatly improved the ice trade, shipping thousands of tons of ice to households across the globe. Soon, ice cream was on every street corner.
In the late 1880s, political turmoil brought Italian immigrants to cities like London, Glasgow, and New York, where many took up jobs as street vendors, selling licks of ice cream for roughly a penny each. Meanwhile, American druggists discovered the appeal of combining soda, a drink thought to have therapeutic properties at the time, with ice cream, and a new social spot was born, the soda fountain. When the sale of alcohol was banned in 1920, many American saloons reinvented themselves as soda fountains, and breweries like Anheuser-Busch and Yuengling pivoted to producing ice cream. At the same time, refrigeration technology was improving rapidly. By the end of World War II, the average American home had a freezer that could house a quart of ice cream. Even trucks could be equipped with freezers full of frozen treats. Today, ice cream continues to take on new forms, and while some of its mysteries may never be solved, one thing is certain: our love for ice cream will never thaw. Did you know that popcorn generates almost 40% of all movie theater profits? Or that archaeologists have found dumplings in sites dating back 1,000 years? Keep exploring the history of your favorite foods with these videos.
Bats are famously good at finding their way home after long nights hunting insects. How they do it has been a mystery, but now a group of scientists says bats may be using the tug of the Earth's magnetic field as a navigational aid. Here's NPR's John Nielsen.
Big brown bats make lots of noise when they're flying around inside pitch-black barns like this one in central New Jersey. They get even louder when Princeton ecologist Richard Holland catches one of them in a net, scrapes the hair off the back of its neck, and glues a small radio transmitter to the ball spot.
This one is quite really aggressive.
Holland tries to calm this angry bat by giving it some tasty mealworms, but fellow ecologist Martin Wikelski says it's not going to work.
And they can shout and eat at the same time.
Scientists like Wikelski and Holland know that bats use squeaking sounds as a kind of sonar when they're down near the ground. That's why bats don't smash into barn walls, the insides of caves, and so on. What the experts didn't know was how bats navigate when they're way up in the air and a long way from home. Holland and Wikelski say they had a hunch that bats use the Earth's magnetic field as a compass. So last spring, they started testing that hunch by catching angry bats and sticking them into big glass jars. Then they stuck the jars into something called a Helmholtz coil. It's a device that produces magnetic fields. If these bats really did have magnetic compasses inside them, the compasses would be messed up by the coil. Holland says this change could make the bats think north was south or vice versa.
And then we took them 20 miles north of the barn where we caught them and released them, first of all to find out whether they could work out that they'd been displaced 20 miles north and would they want to go back home to their barn.
The scientists followed the displaced bats in a plane that was equipped to pick up signals sent out by the beepers. They also chased them with a car, which wasn't easy.
We were going up and down in the interstate. We were driving through housing estates full of New Jersey muck mansions, around schools, around airports, so there were lots of things in the way.
What they saw was proof that bats really do have a magnetic compass. Holland says the bats that had been dropped into the coil all flew off in the wrong direction for a couple of hours. Then, when the effects of the coil wore off, the bats seemed to wake up from a dream.
Some of them, at least, actually seemed that they recognized that they were flying in the wrong direction, after a journey of anywhere between maybe 5 and 15 kilometers, depending on the bat, and then would actually start to correct, and some of them actually got back in the same night.
Holland says he's certain that bats use lots of other cues to find their way around. For example, they might remember mountains or other landmarks. But ecologist Werner Bingman at Bowling Green State University says he's certain that Holland's study, published in this week's Nature, is sure to draw a lot of attention.
It's the first field demonstration of bats being sensitive to the Earth's magnetic field. That's groundbreaking. The data are modest and there's huge numbers there, but they're quite compelling.
Ecologist Roland Kays of the New York State Museum hopes this study will also draw attention to the technologies that made it possible. Tracking tags that are now small enough to stick to the backs of angry bats or even insects.
As people start to realize that tags are this small and work well, they realize there's always questions that they've been dying to ask in the back of their mind but never thought were even possible.
For example, how do small birds and animals help move diseases like the West Nile virus around? Or where the migrating butterflies rest at the end of the day? Or how many other species of bats have magnetic compasses inside them? John Nielsen, NPR News, Washington.